right, guys, welcome back to Right Voice Radio. So, one of the articles on Right News America about Las Vegas man Joshua Martinez. Now, we're going to give you a couple different takes on the case of Mr. Martinez today. Now, Las Vegas Review Journal has an article about him as Ammon Bundy ally, arrested for alleged threats to law enforcement. Now, the Review Journal reports that the Las Vegas man, Josh, was linked to anti-government activist Ammon Bundy, and he has been arrested for threatening the lives of police detective Kenneth Meade and a prosecutor who both handle domestic terrorism cases. Now, there's a lot of stuff that's going on with this case. We don't have a lot of the information to give you like the full picture to see if Josh actually did make a threat. From what we see, we can't determine that he actually made a threat. We've determined that he has made posts that were incredibly in poor taste, things that I personally find disgusting to say, but I also feel he has the right to say it. Now let me see what we have some other information on the story. I mean, Josh, those of you that know Josh, he's pretty active on the internet. I do have to disclose, I do know him personally. We did used to work together at the LV Group in management back in 2012 in Las Vegas when everybody was doing promotions. Now, the Free Thought Project brought you the story about Josh when he was arrested for refusing to give his age to cops when he was on the courthouse steps back in 2017. He was trying to enter the federal courthouse without having to identify himself. He does identify a lot of times. I've heard him say things like he was a sovereign citizen. He has the right to travel. Now, I don't agree with any of those beliefs. Those aren't my beliefs. I'm not one of those sovereign citizen nut jobs, as I like to call them sometimes. But I do believe they have a right to believe what they believe as long as they don't actually commit a crime. Like, you can't say I don't need a driver's license to drive. Everybody knows you need a driver's license to drive. You can't just say you're traveling. But I'm getting off the point. Okay. So he has fought a series of battles for his freedom. A lot of the charges were clearly false. You do see videos of him being harassed by Detective Meade. Now, with videos, I do have to also say you don't see the whole story. And I'm not trying to come down hard on Josh. Josh is a decent guy. Like I said, we don't share the same views. But what I'm saying is, in general, a lot of times videotapes, when they don't show you the whole tape, you don't really know what went on. But I have seen tapes where it appears that Detective Kenneth Meade was harassing Josh Martinez. Now, he is being held on a $1 million bond for Facebook posts that I believe, I'm not a lawyer, okay, guys? So I believe that the posts, while in bad taste and disgusting, are entirely legal. Now, he posted a Facebook photo of a flag-draped coffin carried by police officers in uniform with the caption, "How police officers take out their trash." And above the photo, Martinez said that he can't wait to see the news and hear that Detective Kenneth Meade is in that casket. I mean, to say that about police officers is sickening, folks. I mean, police officers are putting their life on the line every day to make sure that we are safe as citizens, and we owe them a great debt. Now, that being said, what he said was, like I've said a million times, is disgusting. But I do believe that Josh Martinez did have the right to say that. Now, in another post, he did post a photo of Dickerson with the statement, "This is Michael Dickerson. He is Detective Kenneth Meade's bitch. Dickerson, I hope you and Meade die a slow death and a painful death. I have a message for you. Malone Labe." Now, again, it was in very poor taste. I mean, it was a disgusting comment. But as far as I can tell, it is completely legal. Now, you scroll through Twitter, Facebook, and you'll find millions of similar posts about Trump or even Biden, cops, judges, local politicians, individuals. I've seen posts of people physically threatening violence against police officers, advocating for violence against police officers, and these people were not targeted. Public figures who've advocated violence against police or taking stances against police officers and law enforcement that were just they were celebrated as heroes. Now, according to the criminal complaint against Mr. Martinez, Martinez did threaten Meade with the intent that Meade be placed in reasonable fear or death of substantial bodily harm. Now, I don't see how he would be afraid of Mr. Martinez making the Facebook post, but nevertheless, Mr. Martinez is sitting behind bars because of it. He's facing 4 felony charges: aggravated stalking, challenge to fight with the use of a deadly weapon, stalking with the use of internet or electronic communication, and possession of a firearm by a prohibited person. He also faces 2 misdemeanor harassment charges, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Now, some of the information that we've received does come from sgtreport.com. We are waiting to see if we can get in there and talk to Mr. Martinez himself. Now, again, folks, I would definitely advise against posting things against police online. I mean, especially when it's involving another individual's life, police or not. It's just not something that is acceptable behavior. However, I do think he has a right to post that. Now, every single day, people get hate mail and death threats, companies at their employees, and, even politicians. For instance, Mac Miller, who was running for Assembly District 5, his limo was burned. He was receiving death threats to his personal number at his home. And I remember, because I reached out to a few news stations myself and tried to give them the story. I had pictures, police report about what happened to Mr. Miller. And they didn't even pick up the story, guys. They just, it was no story. They never really looked into it. The police weren't as active as you would expect in the matter. I just don't know. I mean, I guess some people are more important when it comes to making arrests. Okay, I mean, I've seen people post things that were absolutely sickening. Like, we all know with the Trump administration, there were individuals that violated the threatening of the president. They threatened the president of the United States online. I mean, I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that were not even dealt with. They didn't even receive a visit from the Secret Service. I mean, we don't know that the Secret Service didn't visit everyone, but we know some of them for sure. I mean, some people did report seeing visits from the Secret Service. I've actually had people reporting visits from the FBI who weren't even criminals. They were conservatives who were activists who stood up for the ability of freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, things like that. But I don't know what's going to happen with Josh. I mean, he's got to stop antagonizing people. I mean, that's what's going on here. He antagonized Detective Kenneth Meade and the prosecuting attorney there, that Michael, I forget his name. But Josh is an antagonizer. Josh doesn't just sit there and let you put the cuffs on him. Josh will yell at you and tell you you don't have a right for this and you're a scumbag, and he'll find you your personal Facebook and tag you in post. And he's that kind of guy. He is an antagonist. Okay? So that's something that I would advise people against. I mean, why provoke a situation that you can otherwise avoid? So I'm not commenting on all the behavior between Mr. Martinez and Detective Meade. There's a lot more to the story, folks. You can look up a lot of the information. There's a lot of videos where it appears that Meade might be harassing Martinez, videos where it appears Martinez might even be harassing Meade. I mean, these two have a personal feud, somewhat of a vendetta between the two of them. And I don't see it going in a positive direction or a fair direction for either person concerned. I'm reading articles here. My producer keeps sending me articles about the Martinez case. There's the anonymous folks and the QAnon and the extremists. They're posting that he's a political prisoner. There's all this other stuff. And then the other side is saying that he is, in fact, a domestic terrorist. Now, my personal opinion is, and don't hold this against Right News America, but I feel like he might be somewhere in the middle. He might be an antagonizing fellow who is a little disturbing and maybe posts some things that are distasteful and disgusting. But does he have a right to do this? Absolutely. I mean, there's liberals that I deal with on a daily basis that post disgusting things. I've seen so many death threats when Donald Trump was president that, and they were actual threats. I mean, you're allowed to push things to a certain limit. You're not allowed to cross a certain line. Okay? I believe that there were so many on the left that crossed a certain line. And Josh is neither a Republican or a Democrat. He's one of those, like I believe I said, sovereign citizen. I don't know if that's the right term to describe him, but I know he claims that he has the right to travel. He doesn't need to carry an ID or identify himself. And those are not beliefs that I share with him at all. I mean, he has a right to believe them, but when the law says you need to have an ID to enter a building, you're going to have an ID to enter that building, and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about that. All right, so that's all the information that we currently have on the Joshua Martinez case. Now, on the GOP, the bill that they're trying to push to allow social media censorship lawsuits. So for those of you that don't know, social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, they're protected by a federal law, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. That actually puts in place some legislation that protects these big social media platforms from being sued for censorship. Okay? So the Republican state lawmakers are pushing for social media giants like Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and many more to face lawsuits for censoring content on their platforms. Now, they're working on removing the federal law that would prevent the internet companies from being sued for removing posts. GOP politicians in about 24 states have introduced bills that would allow for civil lawsuits against platforms for what they call the censorship of posts. Well, not what they call the censorship of posts, guys. We all know that it's going on. How many people have received something you posted went against our community standards? And then you go and look at what you posted and you're like, what do you mean? There's nothing wrong with this. Where you get something that says nudity and you posted an American flag saying, stop the steal. We've all experienced this, so it's not what they say or what they call censorship. It is censorship of post. Now, many protest the deletion of the political and religious statements, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. Sorry about that. Now, Democrats are sponsoring the same measures in at least 2 states. The censorship of former President Donald Trump and other Republicans are believed to be the catalyst of this effort. Now, Twitter and Facebook took the additional step of silencing President Trump on their platforms after the January 6th, quote-unquote, insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Twitter has also banned the president, suspending his account permanently. Well, I guess it is semi-permanently, well as an independent panel's reviewing. Now, Facebook's indefinite suspension of his account is also being reviewed as well. And they're considering whether to reinstate access to the former president. This is ridiculous. So while the federal law section 230, like I said, is in place, it's a section of the Communications Decency Act. It's very unlikely that a measure would pass or be effective in passing legislation allowing them to sue these large social media companies. All right, guys, welcome back to Right Voice Radio. So one of the articles on Right News America about Las Vegas man Joshua Martinez